what I'm here to do, what I'm here to teach, and who is this workshop for. It's hopefully by the end of this short workshop, you have the real hands-on experience to know what UX writing is and to work with UX writers. Or if you so desire, to try to be a UX writer or content designer yourself. Sometimes maybe you're not very experienced, or maybe you don't feel like, I don't know what to write. And you put in lorem ipsum, right? But if you put in lorem ipsum and your design manager sees, why are you putting in lorem ipsum? You need to write something there. So this really helps you learn what to write in your designs. Regardless of the English ability, it makes you a much better designer. UX writing is design. It's also known as content design, depending on which company you go to. And it writes copy. So maybe you're not familiar with the term copy. Copy is just a wide term for words or text. So when you say, oh, writing the copy, can you give the copy for this? It just means text or the words that you can see. And nowadays, if you say you're a UX writer or content designer, you are in the product team. So you work with the actual designers in Figma or in Sketch or wherever else. And yeah, so you work with the product managers, you work with the developers as well. So what is UX writing? So broadly speaking, there are a few things that you can put them into buckets. The first one is your UI. So I'm sure if you're doing interaction design, you're familiar with some of these. Your menu, the buttons that you write, navigation, your nav bars, your headers, your instructions, error messages, your disclaimers, your tooltips. All these are labels and components you use in your design. The other thing you have to do is content. So sometimes it's not just a component, sometimes it's information about the business. So let's say you're taking Gojek, and then it tells you about this new feature where you are sharing a ride with somebody, and it's a model that comes up, and it's a lot of information. So you have to also write the information. You have to onboard users, right? You need to let them know how to use this feature, what you need to do, perhaps things to take note of. So that's content. And then there's other things, information architecture. How do you design a sitemap? A big website like Amazon, how are you going to decide, okay, which one goes where? Conversation design, chatbots, writing with AI assistants. So I'm sure all of us know about ChatGPT, you write with ChatGPT. So that's important as well. Creative copywriting, that's more traditional. So if you're in an ad agency or if you're in a brand agency, you work with a lot of copywriters. So these are marketing creative copywriters. So have a look at this page. What do you notice is missing? We've taken out all the text, right? And then what do you notice? There's nothing on the screen. You can't really decipher what's going on. So imagine if you're a designer, you've designed this, and you don't know what to put in for the words. Is it going to be helpful for the user? It's not. And so what you put in those components are very important because it is part of the design. So if you come a long way, you would have seen some of these error messages where you overclick and then this kind of screens appear. This is the original error message, right? And it is not very clear. It's very alarming. Sometimes you don't know what's happening. So we've moved a long way from designing these kind of components to having useful error messages. This is the blue screen of death in Windows. When you read this, can you tell me what's going on? What happened with the computer? No clue, right? A fatal exception OE has occurred at this time in VXC VMM. The current application will be terminated. When I read this, I have no idea what to do. But they do have press any key to terminate the current application. Press Ctrl and delete again to restart your computer. You lose any information of applications. Press any key to continue. So this is also an error message. It is useful for who? It's useful for the backend engineer. Or maybe when I'm diagnosing what's wrong with the computer, I can read the error message. I can debug to say, okay, what happened? Which is the app that has caused this error? But nowadays, if I see this, I'll realize, okay, this is a terrible application. Why are you giving me this message? It's not very clear because it says I can also press Ctrl and delete. I can also press any key to continue. So we've moved a long way from all these kind of error messages. So now we're going to part one, just the very first part. What is good UX writing? Just remember these few things, right? When you're writing as a designer, all of your copy should be clear, it should be concise, and it should be useful. This is at the core of UX writing. And you may see this in different other terms. Some people might say you might get succinct or short or whatever. The principles are the same. What are some of the other principles? It's good to be consistent across what you design. It can be delightful as well to help the user feel better when they read it. And then apply heuristics. I'll talk more about heuristics in the next session. So let's have a look at this. Also an error message. The top one is the original. Right? What does the original say? It says failure. An authentication error has occurred. Okay, actually, if I see this message, it's not so bad, right? I mean, I can understand what's going on. Okay, you know, I couldn't authenticate, I couldn't log in, and then I press OK. But can you improve it? You can improve it, right? If we make it clearer, we let the user know from the title alone what's wrong. It's a sign-in error. Why can't I log in? You entered an incorrect password, right? It's a lot clearer. I don't have to read authentication because it's a high-level comprehension word. I may not understand it. It tells me exactly what's wrong. And then can I improve it even more? Sure. Why do I need two components? Sign-in error and incorrect password, they're pretty much the same thing. Maybe I can even shorten it. I can just say wrong password, right? And then OK. And then can I improve it even more? Maybe I can, right? I can make it useful for the user. I can say wrong password. I can help the user decide. You want to try again? Or do you want to recover password because maybe you forgot your password? Right, so from the first one to the last one, the first one is okay, sure it works, but the last one is much better for the user. So as a designer, you need to decide. Why? Because if you know what to write, then you will design the right components because the last one only has a body text and two CTAs. Whereas the first one has a title, a body, and just one button, right? The length of the word and all that. So it is essential to design something that is helpful for the user. This is also an example from the top to the bottom. Top is file saved, right? File saved, nicely done. Okay, a bit more casual. Congrats on saving the file, right? So even more casual. You save the file, let's do a happy dance, which is a strange thing. Maybe if you're using Scoot or something, you might see this kind of copy. Your map props on saving file. So this is like way too casual. But depending on your brand's voice and tone, you might need to use one of these, right? So it's important to decide what voice you're giving the product, what voice you're giving the feature. Maybe if I'm using, say, Microsoft Word, right? The file saved may be very formal, but let's say if I'm writing for a travel app, it can be a lot more casual. So it really depends on what you're writing. So most of you, I guess, haven't heard much about UX writing. So I want to bring it from what is UX writing to the last part, which is this will definitely help me as a UX designer or interaction designer, or even as a UX writer yourself. That was a teaser. So we'll dive straight in. This is a bit more in-depth to the basics of microcopy, UI microcopy. So micro means very small, right? So it just means very small copy that you write, right? For labels, for buttons, and for different types of interaction patterns. All right, so there are a few of them. I'll just go through them one by one. The first one is button copy or CTA. CTA stands for call to action. A call to action means you're calling for the user to act on something, right? So this is a button, maybe. Most likely it's a button, or it could be a tooltip, a color, or something depending on what you design. So button copy or CTA, this is one type of microcopy. So example, submit, get started, save changes, sign up now, right? You will see some of these. What do we have to take note when we're writing for button copy? Use action-oriented or concise language to clearly communicate the outcome of clicking the button, right? Or tapping the button. Notice even clicking, you need to decide what to write. If I'm using a mobile app, if I'm using Spotify, will I see tap, click, or press? Which one do you think I was most likely see? Over here, it's click the button. Click means you're using a mouse, right? But if I'm using my phone, there's no mouse. So the word should be tap, correct? So these are things that you need to be aware of. And so click here has to be specific. It should be tap here or it should be something else, depending on what you're using. So it has to be big and fat, and most important thing, because the button that you're writing has the most impact on the business. So I'm designing for Bolt, right? Or Grab. Imagine Grab, the main button is book Grab now, right? For instance, that is the most important button in the entire app because it decides when you get a ride. It's me confirming the action, making a ride, and therefore bringing business to the company. So you're designing and writing the most important word in the entire company, and it's worth millions of dollars. Right? So it's very important to get the button copy and the CTA correct. Okay, error messages. Some examples of this just now. Invalid username or password. Please try again. Right, this email address is already registered. Try sending in or using a different email. Or if it's more casual, oops, something went wrong. Our team has been notified. Please try again later. These are all examples of error messages. Provide users with clear, specific, and actionable information to help them understand and resolve the issue. You need to tell the user what happened. Right. So, let's say the lift is not working. Right. I'm coming out here and lift is not working. and maybe the lift has error message pasted outside. You must say lift is not working first, right? So that tells you what happened. You say why it's not working, it's under maintenance. And then recovery, what you need to tell them how to solve the issue. Please use the stairs. Or maybe come back another day. I don't know, right? So if the lift is spoiled, you need to tell them what to do. So, so error messages are very important because it helps recover your user so they can come back again. There's this thing about warning levels. So error messages come in different types, right? You have different colors. Red is the strongest warning color. Orange is not as strong, secondary, but it's still important. And then you have neutral, like blue, green. Oh, green is actually confirmation, right? So it's not really a warning. You have blue, you have gray, you have maybe white, right? Or something that's neutral. So when you're writing error messages, you need to pay attention to the warning level. It has to be the correct one. Next microcopy is forms and fields. Where you're signing up for something, full name, email address, choose a password. These are forms and fields and input fields with the key in. And it's important to write for these as well. Why? Because you need to tell the user the right information. The labels that you write, the titles or the placeholder text need to be concise and aligned with user expectations. If it's email address, you say email address. If it's password, you say password. Make sure that they know what they're writing. If it's full name, it's full name. First name, last name, these kind of things, right? So these are all input fields. This is very straightforward, but then there are complex input fields like key in your billing address versus your residential address, maybe. And then placeholder text. Sometimes you notice there's actually gray text in here. And if I click this thing disappears. It's used to tell you what you can write. Maybe you put 30 SQL. Right? So this is placeholder text. It tells the user, oh yeah, this is what I can key in. And why do you want to use an example for placeholder sometimes? Because of this design principle called recognition over recall. When you recognize something, it's easier than calling it floor area. Oh, what do I key in? Do I key in square feet, square meters? Do I type it out? I don't know. But if I see this example, it's a lot easier. Right? So this is placeholder text, and it's important for forms and fields. Okay, success messages. This is the opposite for error messages. You want to confirm something, account created successfully, welcome on board. Your payment was successful, enjoy a subscription, changes, save your profiles, updated, and so on. So this is good to update the status to the user, let them know that, okay, you've done something correct. Maybe you put a green tick, maybe the whole thing is in green, maybe you want to throw in confetti. You can combine the party streamers with a success message. Otherwise, the safe one, the very neutral one, right, you can just put a tick. All right, maybe a tick with a circle or whatever it is. Right? Or if it's a field, you have a tick, right, on the right side, right? Not a checkbox, but just a tick. Okay, tooltips. So a tooltip can take a lot of forms. Right, one common form is just this. Maybe it says Orita Sinclair, right? It's accredited. And then this tooltip here, because you can't put information, what does this do? So when you hover over or when you tap, a module may come up and then the information is there. Right? So this is tooltip, and the tooltip copy, sometimes you need to let them know to hover over for more details or tap for more options and details. Because you cannot squeeze everything on the page. So tooltips are important. It's your best friend, especially when it comes to designing mobile apps. You need it simply because you cannot cram information in a small space. Okay, empty states. Empty states are when nothing has happened yet. Let's say if I sign up for a new app. Maybe I sign up for NTUC, the new app. I don't have anything in my shopping cart. I go to the shopping cart, I should see an empty state. Right? It cannot be a blank page because it doesn't give me any information. Good apps should have copy to suggest to the user what to do, right, in an empty state. Okay, let's go to Shopee. Okay, go to your cart and see whether you have what is the empty state copy? What is it? Continue shopping to enjoy the best discounts applied automatically to your items. Continue shopping. It's empty state copy. I would say that's not the best. It doesn't tell me exactly what I'm doing. If it's empty inbox, which I don't think anyone has empty inbox nowadays, it's usually quite filled. It will say no emails, right? Maybe, or no spam or whatever it is, right? So let's say if it's a to-do list, it can be task related. So empty state copy is very important because it encourages action when the user is using the app for the first time, or maybe it suggests the user what they can do, right? So it gives what's called affordance to a specific action that is useful for your company or for your app. Navigation, also very similar. It helps direct the user to where they may want to go. Your home, your explore, account settings, profile, favorites, even back, next, skip. These are all navigation copy. Something you may face is, do I put settings, or do I put profile, or do I put I don't know, customization, or do I put more details? So these are things you want to think about. Do I use explore or discover? Do I use profile or me? And these are things that you should think about. Same thing, be clear, be concise, make it simple, and make it familiar to the user. Right? There are some apps that I've used where it says, instead of maybe profile, it will say about you, or like your device, maybe you're a star, whatever it is that's not really relevant. So for navigation, stick to what is familiar to the user, right? You don't have to be too creative with it. Loading states, when something is in transition and when something is loading, right? You need to put in some loading copy, especially to account for cases where connectivity is low or when your users are not using the most advanced devices. So maybe iOS is very fast, right? But maybe if you're using a slower model, you might need to load, right? And then you need to put in some loading states and loading data. Usually it comes in loading view, right? For UI, which is like this, right? Loading view, or like maybe whatever it is, like an hourglass. Oh, my drawing is terrible. So this will help. Usually what happens to loading states is you can put in some creative copy because it's not very important. There's nothing the user can do. They just need to wait, right? But there are instances where it's very important. So have you all bought stuff online? You have, right? When you are in transaction, you notice what I say, please do not refresh, do not close, and do not go back, right? This is very important because if you do that, your transactions get lost. And then you end up paying double, or maybe they can't trace your product. So you want the user to stay there. So for those important flows, you need to tell the user, please stay with us and don't move, right? And if it's stuck, contact us or something like that. All right, so this is an important piece of microcopy. Confirmation, this is similar to success messages. Sometimes input friction or to introduce friction to the user. As UX designers, you always, oh yeah, your flow must be smooth. The user needs to feel very much at ease. Don't make them think. I'm trying to guide them along in a very smooth way. But sometimes you need to introduce friction. Why? Because the user don't know what they're doing, right? Or you need to double confirm, or maybe they've done something that they didn't want to by accident, right? Imagine you delete all your emails or your WhatsApp messages by accident. So you introduce a confirmation message just to tell the user, are you sure you want to do this, right? If you want to, then okay, go ahead, right? So introduce just enough friction, but not too much friction. So a simple action like using PayLah, right, to send money. If I want to send $30, but accidentally key in $3,000 because the 20 I think is cents, right? Then I click it. This friction allows me to double check. Oh yeah, actually I keyed in wrongly, and I can cancel and undo. So the copy here is important to let the users know for points where friction is important. There are a whole bunch of other types of microcopy. Your legal copy, disclaimers, terms and conditions, your privacy, right? Maybe you need to access the user's privacy. You need to let them know. Onboarding copy to introduce a new app or new product. Permissions to access a user's calendar, contacts, location, so on. Filters and sorting. Maybe you have a big database and you want to sort items. Maybe maybe it's a grocery app. You want to help to sort, to filter. Maybe it's an accounting app. You need to have information to let the user sort their data. Reminders copy. Statuses, what kind of status it is. Pending, for instance, complete. Progress indicators, and etc. So there's a lot of different types of microcopy. Those that I've shared earlier are the major ones. These ones you'll also see, but I don't have time to go through all of them. But this is just a flavor of what you have to write. And it's a lot, right? As a designer, you have to think of what to write. And if your product manager or if your boss tells you, is the design final? Sometimes you don't know. You don't have a UX writer. Oh, wow. Am I confident of what I'm writing in the design? Sometimes you're not. That's okay, right? So, which is why it's a good skill to have. So a quick exercise. Let's try to identify some of these types of copy that I mentioned earlier. Let's pick a website or app to review. And as you use it, maybe you match the type of macro copy, right? And then you share what you notice.